We are 10 seconds away from the start of West London VR1 team. That's the first team starting the Love OTR, Love TT time trial. This course in the Bahamas, hence the little graphics with the palm trees on, just to give it some exotic feel, as if it's a little bit more tropical than the general scenery we have here, which of course is very sort of kind of northern hemisphere, and probably southern hemisphere too, but certainly northern hemisphere terrain, typically anyway. So tonight, everybody here from the Northern Hemisphere, as it happens, Nicola Martinoli from Italy in the lead at the moment, taking up the front. Ellen Lockett just behind from London, and Pete Dickinson also from London. Ellen from Northwest London, Pete from Southwest London. Stuart Thorne from just outside West London, and Shelfance and Peter making up the four riders here. The other two riders you see on your screen, 5th and 6th, these are bots. Nicolo broadcast this live in Italian, I think, for Italian viewers, and well, in fact anybody else can join in as well. Might not understand the Italian narrative, but there we go. And the L West London bot is my bot, which is what we're using to film this right now. So we've got a 25 kilometre course this evening. I say this evening, you might not be watching in the evening, but it's taking place in the evening, and it's reasonably flat. If you look along the bottom, you can see the green line that represents the profile of the course, and that is pretty benign, except for you'll see that little red and blue blip about 3/5 of the way through the course. That is a steepish little climb. So what happens is that most of this is going along the coastline, so it's reasonably flat, and it turns inland, and of course, like most islands, they are effectively mountain tops from the seabed, and they go up, and of course as we turn inland we go up a sharp incline to get ourselves way above sea level. We go over the top and come down again on the other side of the island. So about 9% that maxes out, just above that. There's a couple more climbs along the way, and they are probably 3 to 4% maximum. They're very, very short. In fact, the big climb that you see is very, very short as well. So you can expect decent speeds on this, and looking at the course and everything we've seen so far, somewhere between 35 and 39 is the range that teams are going to get on this particular course. So here we have Ellen Lockett taking her turn on the front, a very powerful rider, and we have to say that she's frighteningly fast when we go out for rides, and quite a few us chaps have trouble keeping up with her, and she doesn't in real life, even sit in an aerodynamic position, and she's going to change that soon, and I think get even faster. But of course your seated position has no effect on one of these virtual reality races, because there's no wind that you're going into, so you can sit in the middle of a position you like, and I think that actually might favour Ellen a little bit on these races. So a very strong rider. We're delighted to have her in the team, as we are with Stuart Thorne now on the front. Stuart, as I say, from Shelfance and Peter, just outside West London, comes on our Club Sunday rides too, so we know that he's quite a strong rider. And Nicolo from Italy, as we know, Pete Dickinson from Southwest London, he's got a great history of racing, so he knows the racing scene, the TTTs inside out, and probably does less of them outside now. I'll leave Pete to confirm or deny that, and again, he brings the experience to this team, so nicely balanced. Only 4 riders. Tobias Bjork unfortunately couldn't make it at the last minute. We would have had 5. But as I say, Pete was in, and in fact Pete joined at the last minute, so we could have gone down as low as 3. So it's always difficult, because you have to get 6 riders available on one evening, and I think all the team captains for all the teams in this Love TTT series run by James Ogilvy and OTR, we all have the same problem. We can't always get 6 riders to be available on the same night or the same day. So you'll see team sizes fluctuate, but I think for me 4 is really what you kind of need at a minimum, because you're aiming to get the 3rd rider over the line, and you don't know who's going to have a dropout, and just having that 4th and the ability to sort of say, you know, somebody is struggling, yeah, okay, we'll ride on without you, as opposed to having to sort of kind of slow down to the slowest pace. Of course, in these races you will always slow down to the slowest pace, because or the 3rd slowest pace, should we say, because you're trying to get the 3rd rider over the line. So the really fast riders will usually do longer turns on the front to help whoever's the third fastest rider get over the line. So as I say, most teams, if you look at their results, you'll see that even when they've got 6 riders, possibly the 4th and 5th rider, and maybe the 6th rider as well, will probably have a very different time to the first 3 over the line, and that's probably because in the latter stages, someone who's pretty burnt out will just say, go without me, and it enables the first 3 to go a bit faster. So that's how it all works. Plenty of teams in this series, and I think it's going to be quite competitive. Series cut into divisions, so there's 4 teams in division. At the end of a few weeks, if you're bottom, you go down a league, and if you're top, you go up a league. Unless, of course, you're in the top league where there's nowhere else to go. But it's all very exciting stuff. It really is, and of course, it makes for decent live viewing as well. So we're very pleased to be part of this. Pete Dixon out on the front now, 4 kilometres done. We've been over that first little hump. There's a very, very small one coming up. But everything neat and tidy, everybody together, and going quite well. Hitting 38.4 kilometres per hour on a very, very marginal uphill of 0.9%, 1% now. So just taking the edge off that, it would probably be 40 without it, but that's the sort of speed we'd expect from this team over this sort of course. So so far going quite well, and you can see they've got a nice neat line here, so that's quite encouraging. It's not always easy to stay together. I know in a recent race that I was involved in, one of the guys kept dropping off the back, and I kept saying to him, "Are you all right?" And he was yes. And after the race, when everybody got their breath back, I said, "Well, why do you keep dropping off the back?" And he explained to me that in actual fact he was having connectivity problems, and he was getting sort of split second dropouts and falling off the back rather than anything deliberate or tactical in it. So these sort of things happen. If it's punctures on real roads, it's dropouts, or as I call them, techanicals rather than mechanicals, on usually on internet service provision. So that is the real danger, and this is why you need more than 3 riders. If you've got 3, it's always dangerous that you don't get the 3rd one over the line, or something happens and the whole race is messed up by one little technical issue. So 5th kilometre just been reached. We're under 20 left to go. As I say, this is a reasonably flat course. The telling point will be whether the team can stay together over the little hump we see it's about 3/5 of the way through the course. So Ellen now sitting on the back, taking most of the draft. You can see the draft if you look up in the top left hand corner, the data there. You will see a green set of words, and that tells you how many watts are being saved by the rider we're focused on. So Ellen's saving quite a few watts by being in the draft there. Not bad. I mean, it's grouped rather than in a line. I don't think that's. I'm sure some of the teams are much more adept at keeping a line, but from the videos I've seen, I think we all struggle to keep an exact line all the time. Not as well drilled and trained as professional teams in big tour, grand tour, team time trials, of course. But most of the time, if you're grouped, you're going to save some things. So it's better to be grouped than have gaps between the riders. And see here, this is quite a nice line. It won't last forever, I'm sure, but we're quite pleased with that. Could the gaps be narrower? Possibly a little bit there. So that gap's probably a little bit too big. So Stuart not getting the best draft off Pete. And we see Ellen coming round in front of Stu now. So and Stu's dropping back a little bit. I don't know if that's deliberate. The gap between Pete and Ellen needs to be closed. I think they're going to close that. It's about 4 metres at the moment. You need a bit less than that. It's coming down 3, 2, 1 and sorted out. Nicolo taking a turn on the front, the Italian. You see his name twice on there. The blue and yellow kit version, if you're looking at the list of riders on the left, of course, is the bot. He's filming this for Italians and broadcasting it worldwide, of course, but I think predominantly in Italian. If you prefer that commentary to this, you can go and watch it on Nicolo's site, Team Italy. And we have Stu on the back at the moment, tucking in nicely behind Pete. Now that's quite a nice line, not perfect, but that's sort of what you want, except that a little bit of a gap of 4 metres has opened up between Nicolo and Ellen, and Stuart and Pete. That's neatly closed up immediately, and we're back into a line again. Great stuff. Now these riders are communicating over WhatsApp. It looks to me as if Ellen has done a turn on the front and is dropping off, maybe, but they tell each other when they're going to take over at the front, and it's Ellen at the moment. So Stu just behind, Pete in third, Nicola dropping off to the back because he has done a turn on the front. Get that one right. I think Ellen was lining herself up to go on the front rather than the other way round. So 7 kilometres done of this course. We're just about to go. In fact, if you look at the right in the centre of your screen, that is the map of the course. The blue dot is where they are on it. So we're going to swing around to the right, following the coastline. Now the big hill, or I say the big hill, it's not necessarily big, but the steep hill that we've highlighted on this course is actually, if you look at that line, you'll see that the route sort of hooks back on itself. So that first left turn after the long straight is where you get the hill. That's where the course turns inland and goes back down. The top of the hook is the course going down the other coastline on the opposite side of the island. So very long, thin, narrow island this. I looked it up in the Bahamas. The Bahamas, of course, is just north of the Caribbean Sea, which must be the Atlantic, I guess. In between, effectively, I think I suppose the tip of Florida and the Caribbean islands, which the Antilles Islands on that sort of volcanic fault line. I'm not sure of the history of Barbados in terms of geology. I do believe it probably is a fault line because it's quite a long, thin island, so which suggests that there's a fault line and it's probably volcanic. But I could well be wrong. I haven't researched that one at all. Certainly the Antilles Islands in the Caribbean are largely volcanic, and well, I say Barbados is the exception. Barbados actually isn't in the Caribbean either, but mostly volcanic islands, of course, in that area, which is, in a wider sense, the Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico. So that's where we're riding. It's wonderful on these magic roads in RGT that you can take courses anywhere in the world and replicate them, at least in terms of profile topography and the road dynamics. So minus the potholes, of course, we don't factor those in, but you never know, it could be a feature that's added at some point. No thanks. So we've gone around that bend and now we're out on that long straight, 8.5 kilometres, going about a third of the way through the course, in 40 kph, which, as I said earlier when they were doing that slight uphill, is about what we'd expect. This is very, very slightly uphill, plus 0.1%, so that's as flat as you like, and in fact it's gone flat now and they're over 40. So target speed, if they can maintain it around 40, probably slowing down a little bit on the hills and maybe getting a bit on the descent. When I say hills, these are the small ramps, of course, rather than big hills. Pete needs to close that gap up with Stu, which is gradually being done. Nicolo just chasing Pete, but he'll fill that gap on. Well, I hope he closes that gap in a second. Looks like it's 6.5. It's coming down. He's closing it. But Ellen's now dropped off. So they're not keeping the tidiest of lines here. The speeds are great, but it could be a little bit better if everybody was tidied up those gaps. The point being here, it won't affect the speed on the front, but what it does, it just saves watts and energy of everybody else. But here we have now a nice line. That's the money shot. We take the photo of that line. It's gone now already. It's the little trio at the back are in a horizontal line rather than vertical line as we look at it. So Stu just off the front probably needs to ease up a little bit and let those three back on. Don't ease up too much because then you have trouble accelerating and it all gets messy. But so it has to be a gentle effect. As I say, if you've ridden one of these, you'll know what it's like. The drafting on RGT is something special. It really is good. And there is, however, a little bit of a sort of time delay between what you do and what happens on screen. I mean, it's marginal, but when you're riding, you notice it. When you're not riding, you don't. And what it means is when you stop riding, your momentum probably takes you past the person in front rather than catching up with their wheel. And equally, if you're on the front and you slow down, when the people catch you up, they're likely to go past you. And the more you do this, the tighter you get at that. So I know when we first started, every time you went to catch up, you pinged past the person in front. But we're seeing a lot less of this, and I'm sure there are teams better drilled than us that have been doing it longer and practiced more, who could tell you even more of the tricks of the trade of doing that. But it is you know, as I say, keeping the team together is key to doing this, and the watts you save allow you to do your 30 seconds or a minute on the front. Nicolo Martinoli taking over at the front now, the Italian, driving forward 41, nearly 42 kph now. Speed's going up. It's on flat ground, so this is good stuff, maintaining that over 40. So, as I say, the range for the finishes, I think it's 35 to 39 minutes, and we are 10k in, just 14 and a bit to go. As we go, another graphic with the palm tree that's just been put into this race. Enjoy it while it lasts, because it's only going to be here for this race. The trouble with doing things like that is you set yourself a standard and you've got to probably make up something for every race, but I shan't be doing that. I've got to control myself and not produce a graphic for every race. But I just thought if you're in the Bahamas, it'd be nice to see some palm trees, and they don't come with the stock scenery that you get on RGT, of course. So just coming up towards 11 kilometres now, speed just dipping a little bit to 39 momentarily. We're back up over 40, which is probably, I'm guessing now, unofficially the target speed. Slightly downhill now, so it rises up to 43, and as that eases off back down to 42, 41. Only a slight gradient downhill, but you know, they all help and make it slightly easier. 44 there as it goes to 1.7 negative gradient. 45, 46, so you make up a little bit here, but to say you will lose it a little bit when you drop down to 38, 39 on those ramps, and we've yet to see what happens when we get to that to the little red section, that ramp, as we can see on that first sharp left bend on the hook. If you look down the bottom, you can see where the red blob is on the green profile. That's what everybody's dreading. How will we do that? And what teams have to do, you have to get up the hill as fast as you can, but do you go up in a group and help somebody up, or you'll get up best you can and then regroup at the top, or maybe even go down and then regroup at the bottom? These are all decisions that will be made by the team when they're riding, and some teams will have this worked out beforehand. Some people might have even practiced the course and worked out how it's going to work best for them. But at the end of the day, this is the big decision. You know, do you lose somebody on that hill? Do you regroup as a four? How do you do this? And they will be communicating on Discord, as all the teams do, I believe. I'm pretty sure all the team captains I've ever communicated with certainly use Discord for their communication during the race. And of course, there's a big Discord community for RGT generally anyway, where you can post up and ask questions and speak to other people. So it's a nice little community, Wahoo RGT. Certainly everybody I've met has been delightful, so I'm very happy to be part of it, and very happy to be involved in both James Ogilvy's OTR races and the ones I put on myself, as well as the Moon Riders race, and of course don't forget Nick Greenhalgh puts on a few as well with the Ratio Racing Fridays. Now that purple arch signifies the halfway stage, 12.3 kilometres done, and we are now in the second half, and that's 18 minutes, very crudely and roughly. You'd look at a target of 36 there, but I think the steep hill is probably going to knock that down, so we might be looking at 37 something here, I think, overall. It's not the only climb. There is, just before the end, you can see there's another very short one. Again, it doesn't really go over 4%, I don't think, or maybe just about 4%, 4.1 or something like that. So you will see a little bit of slowing down a couple of times, and whether or not those slowing downs for the ramps will actually hinder the time or be compensated for by the corresponding downhills remains to be seen. So we're guessing sort of 37 point something here for a time based on an 18-minute halfway stage, doubled up to 36 plus a bit for that steep climb, makes 37. So just over 37 is probably where we're heading. Nicolo needed to fight his way back on there, and does so very smoothly and neatly. And this is how you do it. If you roll up smoothly, you can just judge it right without shooting past the people in front, and he's done that expertly, just sitting on the back perfectly. So this is good time trialling from Nicolo, and just going down the side a little bit. This will happen. As I say, it's a lot easier, I think, to sit on a wheel in real life than it is on RGT. But in any case, I suppose you've got brakes, and if somebody does slow down in front of you, you can actually feather the brakes a little bit, whereas you can't here. The momentum will keep you going as you go past one of those little small crowd scenes, sitting outside the gazebo with that palm tree logo put on just for this race. I guess it will help you identify the race if you're ever looking at videos of this. You go, oh yes, that one, remember it well. There's only 4 participants. I don't know about everybody else. There's certainly, I think there's something like a dozen teams already in this series, and this is really week 1. The way the series works is that you have a series of, I don't know, it's like, you know, I suppose the week before, it's what James calls the sorting week, but it's basically everybody does it, and then you get put in order, and where you finish in the sorting week decides which division you're in. Each division has 4 teams, and this is in Division 2. We struggled to get a team together last week. We didn't put out our strongest team, but we decided that it was better to be in the sorting week and get a bad result than not be in the sorting week and end up in the lowest division just because you joined late. So we did it anyway, ended up in Division 2, which we're quite happy with. We think that's probably about right, so no complaints, and we're glad we did it. And it was nice to get back into it after the summer break. So yeah, well done James for having a summer break. I think that was a great idea. And we're coming back fresh for the autumn now, aren't we? Just what we need as the weather cools down for us in the northern hemisphere, not so much in the southern hemisphere. And RGT Australia have got a lot of teams in this, so that's going to be sort of, how should we say, interesting, because I don't know what time they have to get up to do this, or how they do it, but they will probably still do it in the evenings, because you basically do it when you want, but they're going to have their summer. So while we're all sort of a little bit cool, for those of us that do it outside in the garage or shed, things can be a little bit cooler, and you do sweat a lot on these things. So you know, whether that's an advantage for the northern hemisphere people because we've got cooler evenings to do this in, or whether it's a disadvantage because those in Australia are in the peak of their summer and getting out on the bike a lot, and are generally fitter than us. So who knows? Perhaps an Australian can let us know how they feel about it. I certainly think the advent of smart trainers has made British riders generally fitter. I mean, you notice this in the spring when the people are coming out and doing a few rides and events. You notice that everybody's fitter since they've had smart trainers than in the old days when they'd been out on their bike less. Pete just dragging off the back a little bit there. I think he'll make that up. Yes, he has, and he's back on the line, although Ellen's got a little gap. Oh, we're on the hill, aren't we? Sorry, I'm just waffling on. This is a bit 9.1%. Actually, this is quite good because they're quite close together. This is quite good because I would have expected bigger gaps between them. Ellen just pushing up on the last bit as it drops off that 9.1% gradient down to 3 as they hit the top. Not very long. They've got a descent. Pete just drifting off a little bit at the back, but that's close enough. I'm quite pleased with that. They've got a downhill for Pete to catch up. Now, can he catch up on the downhill? We've got -4%, so not as steep on the downhill by the looks of it. -5.7, so getting a bit of momentum up. 50 kph for Pete now as he does the chase. 53.6, maxing out about then. So that's probably about as good as it's going to get. 53, still over 50, just dipping under 50. The gap is, what is it? It's about 40 metres. So that's bigger than I would have liked. Bigger than they would have liked, I would imagine. Still doing 44k. Now, Stuart Thorne may have dropped back here to help out. I don't know. Ellen's way up the road. Stuart and Nicolo now have been caught by Pete. So there's a trio now. They can chase down Ellen. They've got about maybe 30 metres to make up there. But they've got a nice little line. They're doing it. Pete's struggling to stay on that line a little bit. He's probably just put a massive effort in over that hill and in the chase. But the gap down to Ellen is closing generally anyway. So they're going to get the 4 back together again, which is great news with just 8.5 kilometres to go. So they're on the home stretch. It's not completely flat. You can see there's a little bit of a small ramp just towards the end, and it's not entirely flat anyway. And minus 0.5 at the moment, so they've got the effect of a downhill. just a case of getting Pete back onto the 4, so they've got the full 4 to make the most of. Certainly, I would say 5 out of the 8 miles. I would say if you've got 4, if you get to the final 3 and somebody's a little bit tired, I think you can break up. But they probably want to get the 4 back together if they can. Not hearing the communication here, so I don't know whether Pete's saying go without me or he's not. So we're going to go down to 3, or aren't we? And those are the 3. The gap's now quite wide. It's gone up 60-70 metres. So it looks like Pete has decided that's his contribution for the day. I don't think he's going to make up 100 metres, which is what he's nudging towards now. So we're down to 3. This happens for a lot of teams. The 3 will now, there's no letting up. You've got to do your all for the team. Take your turns on the front and contribute to this. I don't think it's clear out of these 3 who will be the weakest rider, because I think they're all fairly matched, and it will just depend on who's done a lot of turns, maybe been out for a long ride at the weekend, and who's got the legs on the day. So I think these are a nice little matched team, but obviously somebody will be feeling fresher than somebody else, and we don't know who that is from the commentary. But we've got a nice little line here, Stu just tucking in on the back. That's neat. That's 38.8 kph and a minus gradient. It should be over 40, and it's now gone over 40, which is what you'd expect to see. 42, so they're back onto the sort of trajectory that we were on before, that 40 kph, and heading towards a time of, as I say, we were predicting a bit earlier, maybe 37 plus. They're on 26 minutes now, 7k to go. Now, if let's say if they were doing 30 kph, that 7 would take 14 minutes, which would take them up to 40. So they're doing well over there. So we're probably looking at about 10 minutes. So again, we're probably still just on course for a 37-minute finish, as long as everything stays together. The issue about it staying together is that, of course, in the latter stages, legs are getting tired now. Turns on the front seem that little bit harder. The old puffing and panting, and the breath is a little bit shorter. We're down to under 7k now, though. It's 6.5k roughly to go. The legs will be hurting. Everybody knows their duty to the team now. There's no letting up. If you back out now, you're letting everybody else down, and so the pressure is on. Psychologically, can they do it? They're doing 41 kph, so this is still on course time wise. 42, this is good. Making up time. The 37 looking a little bit more manageable than it was a couple of minutes ago. If they can manage it, if they can stay above 40, I think the 37 is going to be well and truly achievable. Could they get under 37? That might be tight. We'll have to see. Don't forget, there is that little blip towards the end that may or may not just sat that last bit of energy, and they've dropped down to 39 here, and they're still on a flat course. So you can see things maybe tiring out a little bit. Ellen's on the front here. She's giving it her all, so maybe just looking at this, dipping below 40, so that is not quite on target. No complaints. I mean, as I said, we're in the latter stages. We're under 6k now, and Nicolo takes a turn on the front when he pushes speed up a little bit. It's right down to 37 now, and not really any gradient to speak of, so this must be just down to fatigue. They need to get Ellen on the back here, but the speed has gone up to 40 as Ellen does a little catch up to get on the back of Stu's wheel. But nicely over 40, but they lost vital seconds in that little section. However, they are not seconds lost, because everybody's got to take on the turn on the front. If Ellen is beginning to feel the latter end of the race and can do 39, that's what you're going to get. There's no point putting somebody else on the front, because you just tire them out and they'll be in the same position. But Nicolo nicely taking it out above the 40. If they do a couple of minutes of 41, it averages out at 40 when given the 39. And Ellen's suddenly got fresh legs and decides to nudge the front, and then thinks better of it as Stu seemingly taking over at the front of this section. Ellen obviously slowed down a little bit then, and like I said, it's delayed, so then when you try and catch up again, you're pinging about a little bit. Stu racing off the front, probably a little bit too fast. He's lost the other two. Speed at 37, 38 again. So you're losing a little bit of time here. We are in the latter stages, 5 kilometres to go, right down to 37 now. There's a little bit of a gradient, to be fair. So that's hopefully compensated for when they kind of get over this bump. You can't really see this bump clearly on the profile, but it's there. The group just not quite together, and Nicolo I think will tidy up that gap in a second. 38, 39 kph at the moment, so they're under the target of 40. So whether or not we're going to make the 37 minute mark remains to be seen. Ellen doing a turn on the front again. We're 38, 39, so I think it's looking like it might be over 37 minutes when we get to the end. We've taken 30 minutes with 4.5k to go, so it's in the balance. I think we can still get under 38, so it'd be 37 point something, I would guess. Ellen driving it forward at 35. We are on an uphill gradient again though, so I mean, yes, we are losing the average speed target of 40 there, but you know, this is an uphill, and we should go over 40 when we come down the other side. When we come down the other side, we're heading towards that last little orangey section on the profile, which is the last ramp. Speed up to 40 there, and what we were doing there, we went back and momentarily saw Nicolo's bot, and that's why the speed looks suddenly slow, because you set the bots at slow speeds so they don't interfere with the race. Nevertheless, we went over 50 at the front there, so time being made up on the descent here. Well over 40 now. It's not going to make up for the 39 sections, and we're down to 39 again. So again, I think this time target is being jeopardised a little bit, but I'm not saying that as a criticism. At the end of a race, you know, people are very, very tired, and turns on the front a little bit harder. Somebody on the back may be struggling to keep up with the pace, and you have to slow down to their pace because you need that third rider over the line. 3.7 kilometres to go on 31 and a half minutes. So if we're going to hit 37, we've got 5.5 minutes to do 3.5 kilometres. That is very doable, and on these sorts of speeds should be done. So 37 minutes now must be the target. That's my target as the commentator. That's not necessarily what they're looking at. Ellen on the front at 39. This should be enough actually, 39, to get that 37 minute target. Any better than that, then we'll need to go over 40. So it's going according to plan, I would suggest. This is good stuff. There's 3.2 kilometres to go on 32 minutes. 5 minutes, if we're going to hit that 37, we've got 5 minutes to do 3 kilometres. That should be done, and 43 kph at the moment on the downhill, so they're making up some time. But they have got that last little ramp, which will seem bigger to them than it does to us, as they have now got sort of 22 kilometres in their legs, or they will have by the time they reach it. Ellen and Stu just behind Nicolo a little bit to tighten that up, save the watts. I mean, you've got to expend a couple to catch up, but then you can sit there neatly, you save some watts ready for your turn on the front as Ellen nudges to the front, takes a turn at 42 kph. This is good stuff, right up to 45 as they enjoy the downhill section. It will be abruptly interrupted by the ramp, but nevertheless, take it while you got it. So you can see them speeding away now, and all of a sudden it slows up and they're on a 3% upward trajectory. This is the last ramp. It's the 3.3%, 2.5%, down to 1.9%. They stayed together over it, which is great, despite the tired legs. They have 2.5 kilometres to go on 33 minutes. This is great stuff. They're going to do the 37 point what, we don't know, and could they do anything better? Plus 5% momentarily on that ramp. Again now 4.3, but they're still together, down there at the top. That's great. They're over the ramp. They've got a small downhill now. What can they do? 43, 44, 45, 47, 48, 49, 50. They're over 50 kph. This is great. This will make up the seconds. 52. This is what you need. Make the most of it. Everybody knows they're near the end. Only 2 kilometres to go, so you can actually start burning some matches, because it's just not too far to go. Everybody will be at their tongues hanging out now. 44 kph, which is fine. The gradient levelling out a little bit as they head towards the line. 1.9 kilometres to go, so just over a mile if you work in miles to go. They've got to put their all into this. The legs will be absolutely sapping. Breathing will be an issue now. They will be puffing and panting, I'm sure. It drops down a little bit to 38 as they get that sort of slight incline, and I think that just shows how tired they are, because I think earlier in the race they would have definitely just taken that in their stride. But things going downward now, so it's up to 42 kph, 1.5 kilometres to go, so just a mile to go. Stu on the back now, a little bit of a gap, a few metres up to Ellen and Nicolo. They should tighten that up if they can, but as I say, no criticisms when you're at this stage of a longish race, and by these standards, 25 is probably the top end of the distances we use, that James uses when putting these together. Stu Thorne taking a little turn on the front as you go past the last little crowd scene, I believe, before the Flamme Rouge, which will be coming up any second now. So 1 kilometre to go, very, very shortly. So there we are. This is the Flamme Rouge. Through there you can see the red banner over the top, or the arch. So 1 kilometre to go. They've got to put everything into this, but you mustn't leave the third rider behind. There's no point zooming off. You've got to stay as close as you can, but whoever's at the front, as fast as they can without dropping everybody else, this person on the back, just hang on for dear life. 42 kph, so this is about the speed, and they have been doing about up to 47, 48 as we do these last 700 metres. This is what you need to do. You need to just burn every last bit of energy. Stu and Ellen taking turns at the front. They're over 50, absolutely pumping it out with 500 kilometres to go. 36.04. They might even beat the 37 we were looking at here, because they've only got 450 metres to go. You can see the finishing line ahead up the road there. 350 metres to go on 37.18, 19, 20 seconds. So I think they're going to actually beat the 37. Everybody will be delighted with this as they come into the barriers, the last little set of barriers before the finishing line barriers. 36.5. They've got 30 seconds to beat the 37 target, and they've only got 100 metres to go. It's going to be a fantastic time. They're going to be very pleased with this as they storm over the line. 36.41 at the moment. The line getting ever closer. 36.43, 36.45. They will be absolutely thrilled with that. They've beaten the 37. Another great race. Thanks very much for James Ogilvy, OTR, for putting on the Love TTT series. We're West London Cycling. This is our BR1 team. Absolutely loving it. See you later.